Released in 2019, the Atomos Shogun 7 is the company's newest 7-inch recording monitor and replaced the Shogun Inferno in the lineup. As a heavy Shogun Inferno user for my wildlife filming, I wanted to try out the Shogun 7 to see how it has changed and possibly improved. As a monitor, the Shogun 7 uses a very bright 3000 nit display to power through the working environments like these where I'm always outside. On top of being able to more clearly see the display in bright light, the 1920 by 1200 resolution and 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio make monitoring a better experience. Additional assistive monitoring options I appreciate in the Shogun include waveforms, full-time focus peaking, and the ability to import custom LUTs. As a recorder, the Shogun 7 writes to compatible SSDs mounted onto the back. I was using the Angelbird Atom X SSD Mini that Atomos sent along with the Shogun 7. The unit can record direct to ProRes and ProRes RAW, meaning a lot of save time transcoding during the editing process. This requires a lot of storage if you aren't used to it, but to me, it's just one of those things that come with the territory of producing videos. Now, I'm going to talk about the things I liked and didn't like about using the Shogun 7. First, I love having the 7-inch display for being able to quickly judge compositions. Sometimes while using smaller displays or looking through the viewfinder or loupe, they can give the wrong impression of how something will turn out once watching on a TV or a bigger screen. They'll make you believe everything needs to be bigger and closer just so it will show up better on the small display, when in reality you might not be giving enough space for a subject to live inside. Of course, the screen size also helps spot focus, where small displays have the effect of making everything look sharper than they really are. The full-time focus peaking only gets you so far, and having a large display to rein it all in is a big help. One area of improvement coming from the Inferno, and probably the most readily apparent differences between the old and new recording monitors, is the doubled screen brightness. Previously 1500 nits and now 3000 nits. This provides 15 stops of high dynamic range and better visualization as to where a final image can be after processing. The bright screen is also a big step up in overcoming the sunlight while shooting outside. In use, the Shogun 7's touchscreen performs extremely well. Nothing kills enthusiasm to use a touchscreen enabled device quicker than having the experience be unreliable. For example, it's an absolute nightmare using the touchscreens of any GoPro I've owned. This is so much better. We've all become very accustomed to the precision and responsiveness of modern smartphone touchscreens that there is a low tolerance for screens that aren't as good. Luckily, I find that this meets those high standards. Moving on to the things I had issues with while using the Shogun 7, I'll start with a counterpoint to the screen brightness. So while it's nice having all that brightness on a big monitor, sometimes it doesn't mean much when the glossy screen is a glare magnet and there's no looking past the reflection. On one hand, sure, you can use the sun hood that Atomos sells separately, but I'd like to see a matte screen option from the manufacturer if they can come up with something better than the cheap screen protectors. Apple obviously had breakthroughs with the matte screens with their nano texture process, so there's room here for Atomos to develop something better and improve. That said, I will still give credit to Atomos for greatly improving the design of the Shogun 7 sun hood over the comically large and bulky option they had for the Shogun Inferno. I've never had an issue with the SDI port on my Inferno, yet the Shogun 7 is very finicky with touching the SDI cable. I ended up buying a new SDI cable to use with the Shogun 7 just to see if that would help, but it would still cut the feed if I put pressure on the cable to move it. Again, that new SDI cable had no problems with my Shogun Inferno either. Another quirk that popped up frequently was with the battery levels. I own several Atomos branded batteries, and often while using the Shogun 7 it would read incorrect battery levels until I removed the battery and put it back in. Fresh batteries would show a much lower level until reinstalled. Furthermore, about the battery situation is that compared to the Shogun Inferno, the Shogun 7 seems to eat batteries even faster, likely thanks to the doubled screen brightness. Having 4 total batteries is a minimum to own if you want to get through a typical 3-hour filming session. Next, Atomos has not implemented any sort of locking mechanism for the SSDs. It's still purely a pressure fit like it's always been, which seems like an odd decision considering the SSD is not only monetarily valuable, but the footage shot to it, which is the only copy in existence for some time before backing it up, can be priceless. And all that hangs in the most basic slot design imaginable. Finally, there's the noise coming from the always-on fan, which will get picked up by a shotgun mic mounted to the camera. Now the fan itself is justified and a requirement for the Shogun in this day and age. My only point here is that for a new generation, I would have hoped to see some advancements in the fan design to make less sound. Maybe that's out of the hands of Atomos, or more to do with working within the confines of pricing for this product, but it's worth mentioning that you won't be getting clean audio with this thing in the vicinity of microphones. For my final thoughts on the Atomos Shogun 7, I want to add that it's important to buy the recorder for its current state with current compatibility, because future support is never a given with Atomos products. That said, the Shogun 7 is a tremendous device to have for filming wildlife. Between the filming process and later on in editing, it makes the immense challenge notably more manageable.